In this week's episode, I'm joined by Shanna Weber, she, her, from Prima Consulting, a recovering financial executive turned diehard baseball mom. This week, our conversation is about flushing bathroom bans, rolling out Southern hospitality in Spanish, designing trails for everybody, and more. Hey there, my name is Bernadette Smith, and I'm a keynote speaker and writer. My pronouns are she and her. Welcome to 5 Things in 15 Minutes, my weekly show where I bring good vibes to DEI. That is good vibes to diversity, equity, and inclusion with a little dash of corporate social responsibility. What I found is there are lots of news stories about what's going wrong in the world and lots of negative data. But there are also a lot of things going right. That's what I like to focus on. I search for stories that we can be inspired by and learn from. My hope is to inspire you to experiment with some of these actions and policies to help you build a more inclusive world. Shanna, welcome to the show.
Hi, Bernadette. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell folks a little bit about yourself?
As you mentioned, I am a diehard baseball mom right now. I am in Jamestown, New York for the Babe Ruth World Series for my son's baseball team. So enjoying that. And I am really getting my company off of the ground. I've been running my own firm for the last 2 years in really specializing in leadership development and team engagement, where I bring in a lot of elements about inclusion, belonging to the training for leaders and how to run their teams.
Excellent. Is there a particular industry you're focused on in your leadership work?
Actually, given my 23 years in finance, I do a lot with financial companies from private equities and venture capitals all the way through banks and investment firms. But I've done architects, I've done a lot in the HR and tech space, so all over the place. But mostly, I would definitely say in the corporate space. So not, I haven't hit the medical world yet. I think that given my experience in corporate, I have a lot to add to the corporate space.
Absolutely. Well, there's so much uncertainty right now, and I think there's a lot of companies who don't know yet what the impact is going to be from tariffs to other sort of macroeconomic policies and new administration policies. And I think a lot of employees are seeing the ripple effect of that uncertainty. What's something you're advising leaders to do to navigate these crazy times?
We saw this happen a lot at the beginning of COVID. If everybody travels back in time to March 20th and 2020, and we didn't know what was going to happen then either, right? Everything
Mhm.
shut down. Everybody needed to go home. We were, fearful of a virus we didn't know much about, but also for the first time for many individuals working from home and from a space with kids being at home and the dog and the cat and the neighbor and all the things that were going on in your home space. And what we saw in that time frame was a lot of just do more with less. A lot of
Mhm.
leaders just saying, "I know we don't know the answers. We don't have a lot of information right now. We just have to keep going. We just have to keep going." And as we learned, there was a lot of silent quitting, or
Mhm.
the quiet recession resignation. In employees only have so much that they can give without receiving that comfort, without receiving some affirmation, without being encouraged to take a break, without
Mhm.
being supported that they're going through a lot. And I'll be honest, I've been seeing that exact same thing since January.
Mm.
And so we have a lot of companies that pulled out investments in things like the EI, and they pulled out
Mhm.
investments in leadership development. They pulled out investments in retreats and team engagement sessions. And we're seeing a lot of impact, huge resignation rates right now, especially with Gen Z. So we're seeing a lot of things coming out of that where you've got to keep investing in your people. And
Yeah.
so whether it's a financial investment or a time commitment, or even just giving them the opportunity to take a break, continuing to invest your efforts into your people is really going to keep them there, retain them, and make a big difference on your team.
Yeah, I completely agree. Last week I led a full day workshop or a series of workshops over the course of the day. And the first session was for individual contributors, so non people leaders. And about 30 minutes into the session, this one person raised their hand and they said, you know, what's the point of all this? No offense to you, but what's the point? Because we went through a similar thing last year and nothing has changed. And that person literally said to me, leadership sucks. And then like a whole bunch of other people started raising their hand and chiming in and nodding and laughing. And I basically turned 20 minutes of that workshop into a focus group where I started taking notes on some of their concerns. And I brought it up to leaders later in the day during that session. But wow, I mean, there's a lot, what I think it comes down to is a lack of transparency and
Yeah.
a lack of humility and honesty about what's really going on. And that to me might be a difference between now and COVID, because I feel like there was at least an acknowledgement back then. We don't know.
Don't know. I think that's the message here is it's okay to say, we don't know what's going to happen to our firm, our clients, our pipeline with what's going on, right? Like it's okay to say we don't know. Here's how we are planning, right? We don't know if tariffs are going to really make an impact, but we are planning if they do, here's how we pivot. And being able to communicate, because I will be honest, leaders are doing something, whether or not they're right. They're up there having conversations. They're in the room talking about what do we do if this falls through or if this goes through or if this passes. Just share, like, we've got a couple of plans. If it goes this direction, here's our plan. If it goes this direction, here's our backup plan. And being able to say, we don't know what's going to happen, but we're thinking through what we need to do based on a number of scenarios. And here's how it will, play out. And I think that transparency is huge. And we were, to your point, the vulnerability and the humility, we were okay in COVID because nobody'd been there. But now it's like, well, we've been through turbulent market times and we've been through administration changes and we've been through these types of things. But each time you just, what are we going to do if this happens or that happens or this happens? How are we going to pivot? How are we going to move? What does that look like for the team?
Yeah, absolutely. And when there's that lack of transparency and that lack of humility, there's also a lack of trust. And that's what was going on with the company, is that people stopped expecting leaders to keep their word. Trust was completely gone, and or really weak at least. And so I think that what I experienced is happening all over. It's just that these folks were brave enough to essentially have a little minor uprising in my workshop.
It's awesome. It's awesome that you were able to facilitate that conversation too. So, and that they felt safe to do it with you.
Right.
Because obviously they're not feeling safe or trusting into their leadership. So it's great that they had a channel to do that. Congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Well, let's move into this week's good vibes. The first story this week comes from the state of Rhode Island, which just became the first state in the United States to legally require workplace accommodations for employees experiencing menopause. So these protections now align with those for pregnancy and childbirth, and it dismantles long-standing stigma around a natural life stage that has disproportionately silenced and sidelined women, especially women of color. Oof, really important legislation.
Yes, absolutely. I think as a woman coming, approaching my 50s, every joke that we talk about is, well, it's probably perimenopausal. Like if you, miss an elevator, it's probably because of perimenopause. We just are now talking about it so much more than my mother ever talked about it. And having going into some of it, it's real. And some of the conditions, it's similar to going through a pregnancy where you don't know how you're going to feel from one day to the next. And women, luckily, are more predominant in the workforce than they have been in the past. They're also staying longer in the workforce. So this is a natural part of life that women experience. And it's great that Rhode Island is taking the initiative to say, we see you and we appreciate that you need support through this part of your life. That, if you ask any single solitary woman ever, she would say, I do not want to have to go through this. So they're really supporting us in how we are and how we're showing up. So I think it's great.
It's great, and we got to see more organizations, corporate, do the same thing internally.
Absolutely. And to support your staff for what they need, right? We each individual goes through things, and 50% of the of the world is going through this one thing at some point. Like, it seems logical for us to support how we can to help people get through that.
Exactly, exactly. All right, the second story this week comes from Bojangles, the fast food restaurant, which is setting a new industry standard by rolling out Spanish language ordering across its app, website, kiosks, and AI-powered drive-through assistant, Bolinda, at over 400 locations. So it's basically one of the first major chains to offer bilingual ordering at this scale. So this is it's a big rollout, which hasn't really happened with other fast food restaurants. So 42 million Spanish speakers could benefit from this.
Yeah, and 42 million people can benefit from one effort. It seems just the right step in the right direction for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
and clearly it's not just about inclusion and, hey, let's just do the right thing. Clearly there's a business reason here, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think all the things that I do on a daily basis in my native language, English, and how I screw that up with the language I'm speaking, and how it's hard for me sometimes to get through some of the new technologies and the new things in the language that I speak. And thinking about throwing in a secondary language and having to navigate through new technologies, through new processes in a language that isn't your first is and as AI keeps doing this, as we're having more of the kiosk type ordering, as we do more things electronically, being able to again support people where they're coming from in a way that drives business. I mean, this is
Yes.
people are going to go eat at Bojangles. Like if they're Spanish speaking, like it's easier for them to do the process, to order the food, to get what they want. I mean, it's a great business decision.
Absolutely. Reduce that friction. It's only can only create a win-win. And that's honestly what I look for in these stories is the win-win. How can we find those win-win opportunities?
Yeah.
All right. The third story comes from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which has a new $1.5 million sensory nature trail at Frick Park, which redefines accessibility in public spaces. So it is purpose built for visitors with varied mobility and sensory needs, featuring elements like high back seating, sustainable fountains for tactile play, quiet birding spots, wide wheelchair friendly paths, large restrooms, and other amenities overlooked in outdoor design.
Well, I'm close to Pittsburgh right now where I am, and it's absolutely stunningly beautiful up here in this part of the country. And so opening that experience in nature and the animals and the wildlife and the trees and figuring out how to make that more accessible for those who might have some physical limitations. But even the sensory stuff, thinking about different ways to bring in the wilderness experience for all of us, right?
Mhm,
The ability to have, I mean, normally you walk on a trail and you kind of look around. That's like,
mhm.
one, maybe two senses. Maybe you smell some things. But like how to bring in more of the touch and more of the feel and more of the experience for all of us is a great way to create some real inclusion.
That's right, because so many things which started as, accessibility features ultimately benefit everyone, right? So
Yes. Yeah,
that's
absolutely. Hey,
exactly
and
right.
even some of the larger bathrooms. I mean, everywhere. That's great that they're taking the step.
Yeah, I completely agree, and, it's still relatively rare, but hopefully we'll see more of this start to catch on and, to make nature more accessible for everyone because I think, as far as I'm concerned, anything that increases access to joy is a good thing,
Absolutely.
right? And the more we can create inclusion around joyful experiences, especially, the better.
Well, I think this is not just making accommodations for a group of one individuals. That's not sort of the only thing it's doing. It's also um, broadening the experience for everybody and creating access for people that may currently not have a physical limitation or a need for accommodations, but may in the future, right? And
Yeah,
so being able for as we progress in age, as we experience life and go through the things that happen to us as individuals, so continuing to allow that joy, that nature, personal experiences together as a communities. Yeah, sounds great. I
beautiful.
might drive down there and just check it out.
All right, the fourth story comes from Hong Kong, where the High Court struck down criminal provisions barring trans women from using women's public bathrooms. So, this is affirming the right to facilities that match gender identity. So, this ruling dismantles a discriminatory barrier that has long endangered and stigmatized trans people, particularly trans women, in public life. Unfortunately, enforcement changes are suspended for 12 months to allow for legislative review. So, hopefully, this does stay in effect. But yeah, great news.
Yeah, great news. And I think I do a lot with psychological safety and physical safety that's in the corporate space, and how we can create an environment where people do believe they belong from all different angles.
Mhm.
And this is a great step in that direction, and fingers crossed for it to get implemented. But again, back to that psychological safety, if you can't feel secure in your work environment as who you are, then you're not going to be contributing 100%. So back to we all benefit when people are included, from their ideas, from their concerns, their input.
I agree. It's definitely a thing that fortunately I've never had to worry about, but I know that if I had to think about where am I going to pee all day, I would not be able to focus on my work, right? And so the physical access can reduce a distraction that can really impact the work experience. The last story this week comes from Missouri, which has slashed its state tax on menstrual products and diapers from 4.225%, which is the luxury rate, to the 1.225%, the necessity rate, which aligns them with groceries. So this change recognizes these items as health essentials, not luxuries, which is an important shift for low income families who often stretch supplies at the expense of comfort and health. This is a big deal for lower income folks.
I was truly shocked that this was a thing that needed to be undone, because
Hmm.
diapers are not a luxury. If you
Yes,
have a child, they are not a luxury. They are a
exactly.
necessity for sure. Feminine products obviously is a woman necessity, but I think any dad would agree that diapers are a
Hmm.
necessity for children as well. So it surprised me that this was in place. I'm so glad that it's been reversed, helping families meet their needs, right? And truly aligning what you're paying for with where it sits in your as a financial plan, it's financial person in your budget.
Yeah. It's these little taxes, they are insidious and they are all over the place. All the little ways these systemic things disadvantage folks who already have a lot of disadvantages. So, what a huge shift this will make.
Yeah, and going back to really creating a place where everybody, benefits. The more you can help with decreasing the costs of the necessities, the more that they are able to participate in the commerce and in the economy, right? And so, not making them make those kinds of decisions when it's about a budgeting process for some necessities and other things that they're therefore not able to purchase.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, let's move into this week's good vibes to go. I'll share my good vibe to go, and then I will invite you to share your good vibe to go. So, my good vibe to go is to check out the Asian American Journalists Association Style Guide, which is a great resource for anyone in communications. So, I'll make sure that gets put in the show notes. What is your good vibe to go?
My good vibe to go is, as a person who does generational differences in the workplace is one of my specialties. My good vibe to go is make sure that we see the superpowers in everybody throughout the day. Find the superpower in each person you meet and bring that into your life.
I love that. Well, that of course then begs the question, what's your superpower?
My superpower is getting people to do things that help them grow.
That's a great
They're
one.
saying, "But I'm not comfortable with that." And I'm like, we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah,
So getting people outside their comfort zone to help them grow.
like helping kids eat vegetables sometimes.
I have a bag of peaches over here that will be eaten by the time we head out this afternoon. So yes.
Excellent. Excellent, good vibe to go. Well, Shanna, it has been awesome having you on the show. How can folks get in touch with you?
You can check me out at the website swprima.com. I also am on LinkedIn under Shanna, Shanna Weber, Weber. And we've got a number of great learning programs and leadership things coming up. So check us out and hope to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us this week. And folks, if you don't already get the 5 Things newsletter, you can subscribe at 5thingsdei.com. Have a great week. Thank you for listening to 5 Things in 15 Minutes. I hope you found yourself inspired by at least one of this week's stories. If you did, would you mind sharing it with a colleague and leaving us a review on your favorite podcasting platform? And if you don't already get my 5 Things newsletter, join at 5thingsdei.com. I'm Bernadette Smith, and I'll see you next week right here for 5 Things in 15 Minutes, bringing good vibes to DEI.